In our day, certain economic truths have become accepted as self-evident. A second Bill of Rights, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station or race or creed.
It's time for the fucking podcast.
Welcome to Leftist Lens. I'm Matt. That's James. We got a lot to talk about today.
It popped up and asked me if I wanted to leave the conversation.
Not only.
I almost did.
We got a lot to talk about.
You know, I get to Thursday and Friday of the week and I start thinking, God, there's really nothing I'm pissed off about. There's nothing agitating me. And then before the day is over, it's like a fucking tsunami of shit.
I would love to not be pissed about things Monday through Friday, James. I envy you as far as that goes. But
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. So the first thing on our list to talk about, we were talking about this before we started recording, but Hamas launched some rockets at Israel. Israel declared war on Hamas. That's all happening. That just started yesterday. And we have thoughts.
It's difficult to have, rational thoughts given the dearth of information that is coming out after the first moments of this happening. It's really, I am sympathetic to the Palestinians 100%. I have no sympathy whatsoever to Israel. There is a group of people exists, and I'm not talking about anywhere else but in Israel. There is a group of people that exists that believes that the Palestinians and the Israelis could coexist, and an independent Palestinian state could be stood up and supported by Israel. Those people are not in the majority. The Zionists run Israel, and that it's been pretty apparent over the decades that Israel would prefer if Palestine ceased to exist.
Israel has never, ever, ever honored the treaty that they signed with the Palestinians in the 80s, after the 6-Day War, where land was carved out, and they said, "Yeah, well, you can have it, and we'll leave you alone." They've never honored that, ever. And so I know that's what facilitated the Hamas strike. However, and I don't know that there's a better way. I've never been oppressed to the point where I had to, rely on whatever tactics there are to try to survive. I've never experienced that. Like the Palestinians are today.
Exactly.
But
the other component of that, though, is that when that treaty came into being, and as time marched forward from there, the other Arab nations never provided any tangible support to the Palestinian nation, the birthing Palestinian nation. Sure. They instead developed Jordan, Egypt developed treaties with Israel, and the Arab nations treat the Palestinians like rogue dogs. They are not supporting the Palestinians. Iran is using the Palestinians to do a proxy war against Israel. That's how it's always been. And so the Palestinians are left out, stateless, and it's awful.
It is awful.
It will be interesting to see what comes of it in the coming week, I think.
All right, now let's talk about the news that broke today, where the United States, President Biden, has sent a carrier strike group from the USS Gerald Ford and its accompanying naval vessels to the Persian Gulf in response to the Israel-Hamas war. Where do you see us getting involved in that? Why are we getting involved in that?
The only possible link that I can make is that those assets are being moved into that arena because of a connection that Hamas has with Iran, and we will seek to prevent Iran from continuing to supply munitions to Hamas. It's about Iran. It's about flexing muscle. I think it's about Iran, flexing muscle against Iran. That's my assumption.
I don't see how getting militarily involved. First of all, Israel doesn't need our help. They simply don't.
True.
They just don't. I mean, well, they do, but they need it in the military weapons we've already sold them that they already have. They don't need continuing help.
But do you think that the U.S. moved those assets into the Persian Gulf absent the request of Israel? Do you think we did this unilaterally without Israel asking for those assets to be there?
I have no idea. I don't. Why does that matter?
Because I don't see, unless there's some tangible intelligence, I don't see the U.S. making that kind of move unless Israel asked them to be there.
That could be. I don't know. It's a terrible situation. I don't really support how Hamas fights its war, but it's hard to condemn anything they do considering the way they've been treated since I've been alive.
How else?
By Israel.
How else would they fight this war?
Yeah, I don't know.
They've done it with suicide bombers.
I've never seen this level of military activity from Palestinians before, ever.
No.
This is new.
And it would have taken, what's funny about it is the sheer quantity of munitions that are being fired out of Gaza is enormous. It would have taken quite a while to amass that.
I saw 2,000 rockets. That's a lot.
One day. But there had to have, if there wasn't intel, and Israel usually talks about this kind of stuff, that we intercepted ships coming into Gaza that were carrying munitions. None of that was going on.
Right.
So
Israel had no idea. They did not have any idea, which is shocking considering the enormity of it. I don't know. I mean, it'll be years before we know what really is going on, right? What's happening right now. We're not going to know for real what happened for years, but not until people are involved in it start writing their memoirs. But right now in the United States, all I see is news out of Israel. We get Israel's perspective on everything, and I know how many Israelis have died. I have no idea how many Palestinians have died. There's the American media doesn't report that.
I haven't looked at Al Jazeera in the last 48 hours. That might be the only place to possibly get some information. How reliable it is
Al Jazeera is pretty reliable, but it's not usually so up to the minute. But
so according to Al Jazeera, they're not showing any numbers either.
They will. I mean, there will be reports out of Gaza in the coming days, but
there's a lot of statements coming out of the UAE and Turkey and so forth condemning the attacks, and it's a wait and see.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll probably still be talking about that next week, although I suspect there will be some sort of conclusion between now and a week from now, because Israel doesn't really need Russia time to squash Palestinians like the time Russia's taking to squash Ukraine. But yeah, I don't know. It's a horrible situation. I don't like any of it. I don't like anything that's going on over there in the Middle East right now. All right, should we move on to the other big news that would have been the biggest story had this not happened? We lost our Speaker of the House for the first time ever.
Our Speaker of the House. Unless they put somebody from the non-majority party in there, it's going to be somebody worse than McCarthy.
Right. It's going to be Scalise or Jordan, and they are both worse.
Oh, my fucking God.
They are both worse, and it's pretty much between the two of them, it looks like.
And they probably won't have this decided before the new deadline for the the funding of the government comes around either. So,
well, we don't know. I mean, the plan is to have the candidates, give their pitches tomorrow, with the goal of having a vote on the speaker on Tuesday.
Trump has allegedly endorsed Jordan.
I don't know who's endorsing Jordan.
Aside from Trump, I know Trump has.
Jordan's a piece of shit. I will be shocked if Jim Jordan is not at some point indicted by by Jack Smith. I'll be shocked.
I can't imagine that if they do, if it is only Republicans that are going to be considered for that seat, that
No,
they
the
are
Democrats are going to put up Hakeem Jeffries every time, like they did before.
I know,
I'm sure they will.
And he could.
They need 5 Republicans to vote for him. I don't know how that'll happen, but
that doesn't seem like a big number. That seems doable,
it
but
doesn't.
in today's
30
climate,
years ago, it would be possible. You
I
could
know.
get 5 Republicans to vote for a Democrat 30 years ago. I don't think you can do that today.
Do you think that the Freedom Caucus, that's what they're called, right?
Yes, the fascists,
Gates and
the
Green,
real fascists, the far right fascists. Yes.
whatever the rule is that they gave McCarthy, do you think they're going to try to carry that into whoever takes McCarthy's place?
I think if it's Jim Jordan, they won't. But if it's Scalise, they probably will. I don't know. They said they're open to changing that rule. MGP is their spokesperson. She said they're open to forgoing that rule going forward. But if I fully believe that if they don't they think they're going to get Jim Jordan in there, and if they don't, I think they're going to want that rule. I don't know. We might see 10, 15 votes like we did for McCarthy again.
Oh, I bet you.
Depends, because you don't know. I mean, there could be deals being made, that we don't know about. But
it's fucking gross.
Interesting to watch on Tuesday if they do come to a vote.
The whole spectacle and the reason it exists is just a horrible representation of how utterly broken our government is. It's awful.
Yeah.
I hate everything.
Well, should we talk about Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan specifically in case people don't know? In case you don't know, Jim Jordan was a wrestling coach at Ohio State University when wrestlers were being sexually assaulted by a team doctor. And Jim Jordan's response to that was, don't tell anybody, the doctor's my friend. Right? So that's what he does. That's the kind of piece of shit he is. He was also heavily involved in what happened on January 6th. He was at the meeting that they had on January 5th where they went over all the whatever they went over, who knows. We need somebody to squeal to find out what went on in that meeting, and that won't happen until the indictments on the members of Congress that were there start coming down, which I do think that will happen eventually. But yeah, he's a scumbag. Steve Scalise is a good friend of David Duke. You've probably heard of him before. Lots of Republicans are friends with him. He's a former Grand Wizard in the KKK that delved into politics and made friends with a bunch of Republicans. Steve Scalise is one of his best friends. Steve Scalise also appeared at the what's his name? Nick Fuentes gala a few years ago and gave a speech in front of a bunch of actual Nazis that admit that they are Nazis and white supremacists, and went and talked there with Marjorie Taylor Greene. They went together, and afterwards they say, "Oh, well, we didn't know." We didn't know how racist that organization was that I just went and spoke to, and anti-Semitic too. So those are your leading candidates to be the Speaker of the House.
It's the Republican Party today.
I love it. Love to think about it. Yeah, they are both objectively worse than McCarthy, although McCarthy was pretty terrible. Any other thoughts on that? That'll be interesting to watch, and we'll be talking more about it next week when we see what happens.
Yeah, it'll continue to be a topic, and it will continue to blossom into whatever shitstorm it's intended to be.
All right, this next topic, I was kind of blindsided by it earlier. So Biden's building a border wall.
All right. Handling this carefully because people get very upset when you criticize Joe Biden. Here is my basis for the criticism.
I would like to make it a point that this show is not a friend of Biden. Can we do that?
I agree with you.
All right, I'm no friend of Biden.
We just lost
20%. If I have to, but I don't want to.
We lost 20% of our viewership now. Here's my problem with this. In 2018, 2019, Joe Biden campaigned partially on the statement, not one more foot of that wall on my watch. Mm-hmm. Boom. Okay. That was his campaign. After he was elected, the Democrats had control until the midterms. The midterms is when everything flipped. He is saying that, okay, first we have an issue of a campaign, and campaign promises are bullshit. I wish people would just resolve to that. Campaign promises are bullshit. But he made a campaign promise based on something that would have required vast action by other people outside of his control. He had his party in control for the first half of his term. Was this talked about at all? Was there anything made public about, I have asked Congress to reallocate the money that is earmarked for continuing that wall when the Democrats had the majority to be able to do this? I've never heard a word about it. And today he's saying, well, I tried.
There's nothing I could do.
There's nothing I could do. No, not under
the money was already appropriated.
Not since the midterms. I fucking hate this. And for no other reason, the campaign bullshit promises, the lack of action in the first half of the term, the optics on this are absolutely fucking terrible. They've made no effort whatsoever to sort of quiet this down. They marched it out there like it was. That's my criticism.
It's crazy.
He did have the ability.
I will say, did the Democrats talk about this? Probably. They probably did. When they had full control, they probably talked about it. They probably said, it's an election point. We can win on this. We're not going to do anything. The same way they did nothing to enshrine abortion into law when they knew there was a challenge coming to the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And they had full control. They could have passed the law. They didn't.
It's par for the course. It's you got to covet these hot button issues so that you've got something to campaign on and keep attention away from insider stock trading in Congress and shit like that.
Yep. I would say there's not a single Republican that I could ever support, and there's probably 5 Democrats that I like.
Same.
That's where we're at. The Democrats are better than Republicans. I will say that. They are. They're better, but they still suck. They still suck.
It's not necessarily. I'm not trying to switch it to this particular topic, but I made a comment reply post today. Somebody was they were comparing Trump's economic growth during his term to the percentage of the GDP growth that Biden is touting at this point in his term. And I simply made the point, cheering on this economy where people have to work 4 or 5 jobs to pay their fucking rent and feed their kids is psychotic. So the difference between the government run by the Republicans versus the government run by the Democrats is the Republicans are going to make you bleed out in no time. They're going to gut you. They're going to spill your guts all over the place. The Republicans are just going to, or the Democrats are just going to suffocate you. It's going to be some sort of blood poisoning or something that takes a long time to kill us. We are not doing well. We are doing better than we did under Trump in terms of economic growth. All that means is that the Democrats the policies and the achievements of the Democratic Party only need to rise to the level of shit, because the achievements and efforts of the Republican Party are a rotting, stinking corpse. So all we got to be is shit, and oh yay shit, we're shit is winning.
Well, speaking to the one number that they love is the unemployment number, which is historically low. But like you said, nobody's a nobody can afford to live on the job that they have.
Yeah,
They just can't.
it's
So
awful, and
we talked briefly on TikTok about this. Like when I was in high school, senior in high school, I got an apartment with my then girlfriend. It was her apartment. She had it already. Her roommate moved out. I moved in. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. It was $350 a month. I was in high school and working part time at a sporting goods store, and I could afford half that apartment and
yeah,
gas and my car payment and everything.
yep.
And I mean, no, you can't do that now. You can't work part time and afford to live. Period.
Hold on a second, because I rented a beach house back in the mid 90s on South Padre Island, Texas. I lived in a beach house. I paid $200 a month for this beach house.
Yeah.
I want to see how much that's going for today. Because it isn't going to be good. $255,000 they want for that little beach house. That if I was renting it for $200 a month, it was probably assessed at like 90,000 at that time, if even that.
Right.
And it looks the same. This is awful. Here's what I want. I want a politician. I don't care which side they're on. I want them to get behind a podium, stand in front of a camera with a microphone, and look right at the camera and say, I've got bad news. It's not going to get better. This is it. This is as good as it gets. It's not going to improve. I would prefer that to all this smoke and mirrors bullshit, because you tell me that, and then I got it, 100%. We're going to make a decision to move forward based on that. We're going to decide what gets burnt down first, because why not?
I don't want it to get better. I want it to get worse, and faster is better, because I want to wake up the rest of the working class that doesn't yet realize what is happening. They need to be awakened, because we need them to join in the. If we actually want to change anything, we need everybody.
Wasn't that back in 2015, 2016? Wasn't that part of what the sort of sideways motivation was for electing Trump? He's going to break the system, and then we'll have the great reset. We're going to have this great reset based on a non-politician being elected, and not paying much attention to who he really was and what was going on behind the scenes. But I think that was part of the pitch back then.
Well, yes, drain the swamp and all that bullshit.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know.
That's the hard part. That's the bitter pill.
It doesn't matter whether somebody's been a politician before or not. You know what I mean? It's what they do when they're elected that matters. It doesn't matter where they came from. I don't care if it's a career politician. If they want to get elected to the highest, seat there is, the presidency, and change the whole system, fine. They're awesome. I don't care if they've been a politician their whole life. You know what I mean?
Integrity matters.
Yeah.
This more than ever, integrity matters, and I think that's the first thing I'm looking for when I listen to somebody pitching themselves to be put into a position of power, is who are they as a person and what level of integrity do they have? And that's going to be reflected in who's feeding their financial coffers and things like that, because who are they taking money from? Who are they being influenced by? These are all the things that need to matter in order for anything to change course. And the Republicans Integrity. That's not a thing.
No.
Do I believe Joe Biden has integrity? Yes, I do. Do I believe he's an honest person? I believe he is. Does he align with socially and fiscally what I think is important in putting the country in the right direction? I do not believe that at all. Not at all. Um, that is a problem. But again,
Once he stands up in front of a camera and says, "I'm a capitalist,"
I know, I love that clip.
fuck
I
you.
fucking every time I see that clip, I just want to just oh my god. So yeah, there's that.
Well, since we're talking about candidates, you want to skip ahead to RFK? Say what you got to say
What the
about this asshole.
fuck? I saw a clip of him on Instagram yesterday, and I think it was a fairly recent clip where he's talking about how the development of the COVID vaccines was a military operation and it wasn't produced by Pfizer or Moderna and blah 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 blah. And he's going on and on about this like
Yeah.
it's some fucking conspiracy. He's talking about Operation Warp Speed, which was Trump's thing. And and I'm reading the comments that are in here. Oh yes, they're corrupt. They're trying to control us and blah blah. And I keep making the comment in this Instagram post. That was Trump's program, that was Trump's design. That was him. So he's to blame, right? And fucking nobody touches that shit because the common sense you start to apply to this insanity. That man is insane. RFK, he's
He thinks
fucking
tap water makes you gay.
he's
That's
bonkers.
he is crazy.
He's almost as bad as Marianne, what's her name? Williams?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yes.
Oh my fucking God. And Vivek Ramaswamy. Oh, the whole fucking thing is just horrible.
All right, let's talk about the New York fraud case. Trump. We already talked about how they've delayed him having to give up his businesses, by the way. That has happened.
Okay, but the theme that is being pushed with that particular declaration is not consistent with what the judge stated directly in this. The concern that I saw that was stated by the judge in his ruling to delay this was the number of people who are going to be unemployed because of these businesses being shut down. And that's a legitimate concern.
Right.
So what I think is that what they should determine in this, they should treat this like they do a bankruptcy. When you do a personal bankruptcy or a business bankruptcy, creditors get lined up and they get prioritized in terms of who gets their money. The people who are employed by any of these Trump organizations should be the first in line. When they auction this shit off.
I don't think they should have to be put out of business. His ownership just needs to be stripped.
I'm not sure.
To buy him, even if it's for pennies on the dollar. I don't care.
I would have to go back and look at the original ruling that Engeron put in about that. I'm not sure what he said because it does make sense that it was just about stripping him of. But then again, the level of fraud in this is to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. They are entitled to recoup that from the assets of these businesses, which would in some cases shut the businesses down because they would have to sell it. So I'm not sure what Engeron's original ruling said, but there is definitely the basis for the stay was that people will become unemployed, and that's an unnecessary consequence of this. So this isn't a win for Trump.
Oh no, of course not. But I love how he can't stop, criticizing everybody.
As soon as he walks out of the courtroom,
the judge can admonish him like, "Hey, you can't say that. We'll come out. This judge is not fair."
Oh, he goes as soon as he walks out the door. Before he's even out the door, his hands are going and he's whining and crying.
But it works. These fucking idiots, his acolytes, they eat all that shit up. Yeah. He says it's not fair. They're like, "Hey, it's not fair. He said so." Fuck. Yeah, we're talking to you. If any MAGA people are ever watching this podcast, you're a fucking idiot. That's what we're saying. You eat that guy's bullshit up like it's gospel. Of course, you eat the
And
gospel
if they
like it's gospel too. that's that's a different part of this podcast we haven't really touched on yet, but we might someday.
if
But
they were smart, if any of them were smart, they would be getting a class action lawsuit together to again pick at the carcass before it is completely consumed and get their pound of flesh back. But no, they're still writing checks to him.
yeah.
Oh, I don't see this on our list,
It's all right.
but related to, huh?
Bring it up if you got something.
Lindell,
Oh, he's broke.
Not just broke, but his lawyers jumped ship, and he's
Oh
my God,
he can't pay them.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it.
That is great. All right, this next thing I don't really know anything about. The appellate court stay of the dissolution order. Oh wait, that's what we just talked about.
That's what we just talked about. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we just talked about.
All right, tell me about Trump
Now,
submarines. I don't know anything about that. Unless you want to talk about Kaiser Permanente. That strike's over for now.
well, let's talk about Kaiser, because what I know from Kaiser Permanente, based on my 25 years working in the medical field, was that they were a management company for Medicare.
Yeah.
For Medicare recipients. I saw that they were calling for a strike. I haven't seen enough about what's happened with it.
All right. So what happened was it was mainly nurses. Okay. Kaiser Permanente employed nurses at numerous hospitals around the country. They want, if you know anything at all about nurses, is they work a ton of hours, and they are vastly underpaid. Okay, that's I don't know anyone that will debate that with me, but maybe I don't know. But for the level of importance for their work, they are incredibly underpaid, and they work ridiculous hours. So the Kaiser Permanente nurses were wanted to strike for that, basically better working conditions, less hours, more pay. Right? Those are completely understandable asks, in my opinion. So what they did was they decided to have a weekend strike. So they went on strike from Friday to Monday, or Friday to Sunday, something like that. Just to that was ahead of time. Like the strike is only going to be 3 days, but we just want you to feel what it's like to not have us, right? To strengthen their bargaining power, because they were already bargaining for a new contract, and it wasn't going well. So this was their first step. We'll just do a little 3-day strike and show you what it's like to not have us, to strengthen their position. And then they went back to negotiating. So that's where we're at now. So if the negotiations do not improve, they are prepared to do a much larger and longer strike. But for now,
do we know anything about what they've asked for in that?
I don't know specifics. I know it revolves around hours. They don't want to have to work the hours they're currently working. They want to be compensated more. So I don't know specifically. This is another thing I know about nurses. Their compensation varies wildly, or, from hospital to hospital or whatever, contract to contract. So I don't know specifically what their situation is as far as compensation and what they're asking for.
Well, but with when they agreed to engage in business for Kaiser, they obviously, these are nurses who weren't assigned to do this as a task through if they're employed by a hospital through their work. They're doing this independently for the most part. This is how I understand. This is how it used to work, is that Kaiser would come in and negotiate with the nurses. Okay, we need you to assess 12 patients a day, and for this much money. That was a deal back in my day that was struck with the nurses outside of their initial employment. So whatever they're getting, they're probably all getting pretty much the same thing. that nurses pay and remuneration varies greatly at the hospital level and at the clinic level when they work for these clinics and hospitals. That's very true. But I think in their relationship with Kaiser, they're probably all getting pretty much the same thing. So that whatever they're asking for is something that will apply
they're
across the
asking
board,
for
I
more.
assume.
Whatever, I don't care. I'll tell you another thing. I ordered sub today, delivery, right? Local delivery. And I asked the guy who delivered it how he was doing. And he said, working too many hours for not enough money. That's what he said. Not kidding. I'm paraphrasing. He said it a little bit differently, but that's what he said. And I
Yeah,
didn't ask him what his politics was, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was a conservative saying that and thinking that it was Biden's fault that he's working those hours somehow.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the problem. The working class conservatives are experiencing the same pain as the rest of us. They're just misinformed on what's responsible for it. You know?
Yeah, I mean that comes back to the comment reply post I made today about cheering on today's economy, because the uh, the the person who made the post comparing the GDP growth between the two terms was like, "Yeah, we are winning." No, we're not fucking winning. And it's just fucking ugh. Anyway, so Trump's submarines. This is all I know about this. Is what has been in the media about this is that he had detailed conversations with some Australian businessman that divulged classified information about the capabilities of the U.S. nuclear submarine fleet, and then there's apparently a trail of information that leads from that Australian businessman to Russian contacts that then lead to Iranian contacts. And this may then come back to the current situation in Israel in terms of Hamas and their intel that they had about the Iron Dome project. So there may be a legitimate trail of breadcrumbs that connects all of that shit together. And my only reaction to that is, and how long it was only a matter of time before the running of his mouth that Trump has done and divulging military secrets is going to come full circle and create a global situation. So I'm
Yeah,
not surprised if that.
yeah. I mean, it's insane how easily Hamas launched that first strike. Completely took Israel by surprise, which is impossible. Israel has some of the best intelligence on the planet on everybody. They, especially on Gaza, Israel usually knows what's going on in Gaza.
Yeah, there
For
was no
Hamas
talk
to
about this
amass
whatsoever.
thousands of missiles and then launch them without Israel knowing is insane.
And they amassed those munitions without Israel knowing. There would have been some activity. There would have been ships intercepted. There would have been, there are plenty of human rights groups that watch Israel from the border very closely. And if Israel were boarding ships that were bringing supplies into Gaza and finding Katyusha missiles or something, that would have come out. None of that has come out. None of that appears to have happened. So for months, if not years, Hamas has been accumulating these missiles, in all likelihood from Iran. And they also received intelligence on the Iron Dome system and how to overwhelm it, because every system can be saturated and overwhelmed. But you had, with a dumb missile system like the Katyusha, which I assume that's what they're still using, Stalin stovepipes, they call them, that they've been around since the fucking 1940s. They're still being produced, but it takes a certain amount of intel to be able to use a dumb system like that to be able to overwhelm a system like Iron Dome. And they were given that information from someone. And the trail of breadcrumbs most likely leads back to Trump.
Well, we'll know more about how this happened at some point in the future, but it could be years from now. But it is, I don't know.
Oh, did you also hear that Eileen Cannon granted there was a motion granted by the defense for the review of the classified documents. There's a standing rule about that. I can't remember what the acronym is, but she granted a delay in the review of the documents in the Mar-a-Lago case until they can figure out whatever the situation is with the rule about CISPA or CISA, whatever the hell it's called. So there's a delay of sorts in that too, and Trump is of course calling that a victory, but again, it's not. I was really worried when I saw the news article about it, but then I read Cannon's order on the motion, and it was just okay. We need to come back and look at what this looks like and how it plays out, and
Well, I don't
where
think
these documents get.
my thoughts are the classified documents case is not anywhere near the most important case that Trump's been indicted on right now, because he has the in pocket judge that's going to help him where she can, and quite frankly, I mean that is one of the worst of his crimes, but it's the toughest one to convict him on, I think, based on ambiguity. I think in the how the president can view his own documents, whatever. I don't know. He is more likely to get convicted in the election interference case in Georgia sooner. Like that's going to happen sooner. The the other case in Washington, that's going to happen sooner. The classified documents case can take its time. It's not the only indictment he has anymore. It was the first
But
one.
given coming back to we'll call it the submarine thing. I'm going to revisit. I think I made the statement in our last podcast. Go ahead and elect him. Go ahead and elect him. The information that's coming out, the idea that the military will support him as commander in chief, I don't think it exists. I don't see it. So go ahead and elect him, because
Yeah,
I'm
I was in the Army. I've been out for 20 years now, but the Army I was in would definitely not have supported anything Trump plans on doing in 2024 if he wins.
And the argument that people bring up when I bring this possibility up, the argument against it is, oh yeah, but you don't understand. They run Fox News on all the military bases all the time, and yeah, they do. But I also know what the prevailing attitude is among some very high leadership in at least one branch about the damage that his presidency and his post presidency has caused. And when you put all that together, the idea that he's going to be sworn in and the Joint Chiefs are going to be there and they're going to just stand by and salute him, that's not fucking happening, buddy. No.
Well, I mean that's
Because
the thing.
if it
I don't think he will get elected again. I don't, but I didn't think he would get elected in 2016 though, and he did. So who knows? Who knows? Yeah, we live in dystopia, James.
But on the bright side, the new Dune movie comes out next month, and I'm fucking psyched about that.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I can't wait.
I never watched the first one.
The first original or the first?
I never watched the original or the
Oh
first
my
new
god. We're done here. You can go away.
Hey, I can watch it. I just haven't.
Highly recommend it.
All right. I don't know that much about the Dune universe. Don't know that much about it.
Oh, but you do need to watch that movie I talked about on TikTok today about No One Will Save You.
Yeah, I saw it on Hulu. I have Hulu, so I'll watch it right after we record this.
It's a really weird movie because there is no dialogue in it, but you realize very quickly it's absolutely unnecessary, and it actually enhances a lot about it.
Right.
I'm
gonna check it out. We can open our show next week with a discussion on
with a movie
No
review.
One Will Save You. And Dune. Maybe I'll find time to watch Dune. I don't know. Well, what else you got, James? I don't have anything else to talk about. I don't have a shout out today. I didn't plan one. You have anybody?
Oh yeah, we were going to do asshole of the week. I
don't know. We got to talk about that more. All right, viewers, we want to do this segment called Asshole of the Week. And we've got a couple of ways to do it. So either James and I are going to pick an asshole and just tell you about why they're an asshole, or we're going to pick two assholes and James will get one and I'll get the other, and we'll each, try to sell them as the asshole of the week, and then we'll let the viewers decide which one is the asshole, and we'll keep a running tally on how many, because we're going to see the same people come up time and time again if they're in the public eye. Maybe we'll even send little trophies. We get a congressman to be the asshole of the week. We can send a little trophy to their office or something.
Or a social media influencer. Now I really want to do research. If we're going to pick somebody, I want to do research. I want to know more about them than just like if it's somebody from TikTok or Instagram. I want to know more about them than what the typical person knows based on their content. So, like Nardwar.
Nardwar knows some shit, man. But yeah. All right. So viewers, we want to install this segment. It'll go at the beginning of our episodes. Comment down below what you think, what you prefer,
or who you want to be nominated.
If you want to nominate somebody, that would be great. Yeah, let us know. We're gonna try to unveil that next week or sometime in the future. It's been on our list for quite some time now. Yeah, so let us know. Comment, even whether you love us or hate us. Comment down below. We'd argue with you if you want us to. We'll fight in the comments. I will anyway. So yeah. Well, that's all we got for this episode. Thanks for listening or watching. James, you got anything to say?
Nope. Peace out. And